Okay. Okay, welcome, and I'm glad to see those here in the room and those online as well. This is the COBRO meeting, and today we have an interesting program. We're going to finish our discussion about our work plan and talk about where COBRO is going for the next year or so. We'll also hear about briefly about the Mexican elections, and then also an update on the World Design Capital efforts on planning in the transborder San Diego-Tijuana region. So I'd like to start with the self-introductions. Jose?
Yes, the logistics for the meeting.
If Giovanna, can you please do the instructions for interpretation, please?
Yes. Announcement from the interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on interpretation icon, the world, and select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app from a cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you're in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles, haga clic en el icono de interpretación, el globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish Español. Si está utilizando la aplicación de móvil de Zoom, desde su celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de la reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. And also during our discussions, COBRA members who are online can raise their hand and we'll call on them. And those here also signify by raising their hand. I want to continue with the self-introductions. Jose?
Hello, Jose Marquez with the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans.
Hello, Dinora Gonzalez with the Planning and Placemaking Design to Action Network of World Design Capital.
Good morning, Nathan Owens, UC San Diego Division of Extended Studies.
Good morning, Alejandra Miritaran with the Otay Mesa Chamber of Commerce.
Buenos días, good morning, Hector Vanegas from SANDAG.
And I'm Paul Ganster, San Diego State Emeritus.
Buenos días. Good morning, Mariela Rodriguez, Senior Regional Planner at SANDAG.
Hello, Evan Funk, Regional Planner at SANDAG.
Hi, I'm Danielle Coachman, Manager of Strategic Partnerships at SANDAG.
Good morning, Javier Gomez with the Office of Mayor Todd Gloria.
Buenos días, Hernando Durán de Tijuana Innovadora. Gracias.
Well, thank you. And online, do we have introductions?
Yeah. We can start with Claudia.
Okay, thank you. This is Claudia Basurto from Tijuana Innovadora. Good morning, everyone.
Hi, this is Mario Lopez from consulting from the Border Group, and I'm here representing Canacintra Tijuana. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Santiago Bustamante, and I'm a Sustainable Communities intern at SANDAG as well.
We can keep going with James. Gita.
That it?
Jessica? Lena?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I'm Lina Ojeda. I work at the Colegio de la Frontera Norte, and Gabriela Muñoz asked me to attend to this meeting because she's not available today. Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Zach?
Good morning, Zach Hernandez, planner at SANDAG.
That's it. Thank you.
That's it. Well, thank you very much. And again, welcome. I'd like to shift the agenda around a little bit and move item 4 up to the next item that we address. And what we'll do is we'll take public comments. And first we have Hector Venegas, who will provide some input on recent political events in Mexico. Hector.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't know if I have a clicker. I have 3 slides. Okay, can you move to the next one, Kendall, please? First of all, I just want to remind that we are in the middle of the United States Hispanic Heritage Month, which is important for the borders community. So I didn't want to omit making this recognition. Can you move to the next one? Very important. Yesterday was a historic day in Mexico when Dr. Claudia Sheinbaum became the first president of Mexico, a woman president of Mexico. The first time in 200 years of democratic elections, for the first time, a woman will lead the country for the next 6 years. In terms of symbolisms, this is one that reminds us that equity is not yet a homework that is done. As an interesting fact, it's worth also noting that not only is Sheinbaum the first woman to become president of Mexico, but also the fact that for the first time a woman was in charge, of making the delivery of the presidential sash. Mrs. Ifigenia Martinez, who is the president of the executive board of the Mexican Chamber of Diputados, was responsible of doing that transition. And also the new Congress of Mexico reflects this paritarian conformation with 50.6% of Congress members being women, only behind Rwanda, Cuba, and Nicaragua. As a result also of the elections held in June, out of the 32 federal entities in Mexico, there will be now 13 female governors representing 40, can you move to the next one, please? Sorry. Representing 44.7% of Mexico's population, which is estimated at 126 million. So the map shows you the states that are now governed by by women governors. In Mexico, women have been voting since 1953, although the Constitution was amended in 1947. So this is my brief report, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks very much, Hector. Very interesting evolution of participation of women in politics in Mexico over the past few decades, and really, I think, unparalleled around the world. And we certainly hope after the U.S. settles its new presidency issue, we will be able to work together on closely and hopefully address the border issues that we need to address. In terms of public comments, I think Laura Araujo had her hand up.
Yes, good morning. Hi, everybody. This is Laura Araujo with Wild Coast and Design Forward Alliance. I did not get a chance to introduce myself, and that's why I raised my hand. Thank you.
And welcome. Are there any member comments about what you're up to or public comments at this time?
Can you hear me, Paul? This is Mario.
Oh, hi, Mario.
Hi, everyone. I just want to mention the importance of making sure that our folks and member organizations from south of the border are aware of these meetings ahead of time and they're able to participate. The time, and I don't know if it because it was a Mexican holiday yesterday because of the change of government, but I know that very few participation from some of the Mexican memberships. And over the last years, I've noticed that there's less and less participation from organizations in Mexico. So just this is something to take into account as we discuss the work plan for 2025. What steps, actions, or ideas we can come up to make sure that we always have a very, robust participation from both sides of the border. Thank you, Dr. Gantz.
Thanks, Mario. Good suggestions, and our change in meeting time was one effort to address the issue and enable Mexican colleagues to come to SANDAG offices and then return to Tijuana before the traffic becomes too bad, if that's possible these days. I'm not sure it always is, but good point, and we'll just continue to try to outreach particularly to our partners in Mexico, because we really do need to increase participation from both sides of the border. Are there any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Sorry, I omitted to mention that also municipalities south of the border started their new administrations yesterday. So Ismael Burgueño is the new mayor of Tijuana. Leonel Cota is the new mayor of Tecate. And the administrations are for 3 years.
So a whole new cast of officials in the border region, and it'll take some time to develop those relationships. I think the mayor-elect was able to visit with SANDAG last Friday, so at least people are beginning to develop those relationships across the border. Thank you. Other comments? Well, let's move on to our work plan discussion. First, let me just mention one of the topics that came up in our discussions last time was the web presence of COBRO on the SANDAG website. And there have been a number of discussions and efforts internally, and we've raised this with leadership at SANDAG, and I think there's interest in getting COBRO back in a more prominent position. And that would include a number of things. First would be listing COBRO members and the institutions that they represent. Secondly, we need to make sure that the agenda items and reports on our meetings are easily available and easily findable as well. As you all know from running around websites, sometimes the information's there, but it can't be accessed easily. So accessibility is an issue. And finally, we want to make some key documents available that illustrate the past involvement of SANDAG in major border issues. For example, going back many, many years, the committee produced a good document on water issues that I'm sorry to say is even more relevant today than it was back then, because we're still faced with a water crisis in the region. The pioneering studies of economic impact of delays at the border can be found on the website, but I think something could be done to improve those. So these are just some of the examples, and that's going to take some time, but perhaps Mariela can give us an update on her discussions and meetings with staff about getting us more visibility.
Sure. So over the last couple of weeks, we have been working very diligently with our internal department for the website on creating a web presence for the group. And we got the okay to have a website done and created for the group. So Evan, Paul, and I are working on creating the content and the structure for that website where you will be able to find in a more prominent space all the information about COBRO past, future, and current, meetings, different documents that may have been created, the document that Hector so nicely has been assembling over the years, describing all the different topics that were brought up to the committee. So hopefully at the next meeting, we'll have more information on the progress of that. So we'll share when we have more information.
Okay, and today we'll discuss our work plan and sort of finalize the language. And that's the one-page document that you all received. In addition, you received another document that speaks to the priorities that members set on our meeting on September 4th, and then also a short piece on summarizing the outcome of the survey that was sent out last spring. These, I think, are just background documents that we can refer to as we need them. But if anyone has specific comments on those now, we can talk about it. Otherwise, we'll move on to discuss the specific work plan.
Mario Lopez has his hand up. So Mario, if you want to unmute yourself. Do you have a comment, Mario, or that was your hand from before?
I'm trying to see if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you. No, I really appreciate Dr. Ganser following up on, the few conversations that we had last year. Not that last year, a few months ago on, the importance of addressing the website and making sure that, there's a wealth of information that COBRA has produced over the last 2 decades, and how important for folks and borderlanders and people who study and live the border, that information is, and having those in the website. So I really appreciate the effort and the attention that staff has done from the agency to put that together. And just to mention on the work plan, which I have the document, I have comments that I will make it in a little bit, but the importance of making sure that some stakeholders that might not be aware that this work plan is being developed by COBRA, Dr. Ganser, that we might give ourselves a little bit more time to make sure that we directly send this draft document to them and make sure that we have input, because I'm even thinking from the mayor's office, so I'm very glad that Javier is there, but the supervisor's office and many other decision makers who have a stake in the border who might not be aware that the plan is being developed. So just thank you for being able to make that comments.
Okay, fine. Does anyone have any comments on what Mario is suggesting, that we delay approving the work plan, and also send it out to other stakeholders for input? Jose?
I have a comment is related. And one of the things that I think we're missing is how do we expand the membership of COBRA to other public agencies or private or CBOs? They're not part of COBRA right now. So I don't know if you want to discuss that. It's kind of like related to the attendance and membership. So
Nando?
Yes, I have a comment. In the work plan is not any environment issue like sewage or water or something like that. What is that? Is because SANDAG is not in his mission is not that part, or what is that? Because I think it's one relevant activity in the region.
If I may respond to your comment, so we have included the border master plan environmental document that SANDAG is developing. And while it's not solely related to water and sewer, it's related to environmental issues, which include some of that.
Yes.
I apologize. Regarding your question about delaying, I kind of feel we've been delaying this conversation already, and we've been promoting the state to develop this work plan. So my suggestion is to approve a work plan. It doesn't mean it can't be amended from feedback from additional partners. That I think is a great idea, what Mario's suggesting, but I think we should approve something, and then as membership grows, we could always amend.
Okay. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah, hi, this is Mario. I agree with Alejandro's comment. It's important to move forward, and with the new administration, especially the city of Tijuana, this might be a worthwhile starting conversation about how and the main items are. So gracias, Alejandra. That's a great idea.
Okay, good. And Marty, I hope we can count on your continued active involvement to remind us of this and other things.
I hope that's not sarcasm, Dr. Ganser, but I'll be around. Thank you.
Oh, no.
It might. That's why I'm asking. No, I appreciate the comment.
Okay, thanks. So, one other point on the work plan. Well, let's discuss the work plan first and adjust it as we find necessary now. And then I want to talk about how we take our message out more broadly within SANDAG. So the draft work plan has a revised purpose and responsibilities. And is that language okay with everyone?
I mean, I like the language, but I have a question. When somebody mentioned one of Hector's report, it kind of reminded me of some of the reports that we've gotten in the past that I think were developed by, I want to say COBRO, like the studies on trade data, that even though CBP produces the data monthly, I think SANDAG, COBRO, Zach, I know is on the line, they produce these really interesting, more readable documents that I think were very valuable to the community in general. And I don't know if that's part of COBRO or is that a different kind of work plan? I guess it's a question because I don't see that in the work plan because we didn't really talk about it, but it's just coming to mind. And you mentioned, Chair Gangster, the politics and the different members, and I don't know, like just a document of who the players are and the differences in terms of politicians on the Mexican side or government officials. I remember we did something like that at San Diego Dialogue. I forget the name, but it was it's just sort of, and I think that's still relevant. But I don't know if that's a role that this committee and staff can play in terms of those documents. It's a question.
Well, with regard to your last point, I think that's a topic that COBRO could certainly embrace because that would help officials in San Diego and stakeholders in San Diego better understand realities across the border, and that we don't have a clear institutional fit. And so understanding the differences, it's a process that everyone who gets involved in the border has to go through. But I think perhaps having an easy guide, a quick and easy guide would be helpful. For example, who deals with sewage issues in San Diego? Who's responsible across the border? And just that basic information, or different levels of law enforcement, on and on and on. I think, and also the structure of the chambers and who represents the private sector on each side of the border and how. I think that would be helpful. Now, the question is, does COBRO have the research ability now to put that together? And I think that's something I have to ask Mariela about.
Well, I'm not sure what our place, like how much we can be investing. I don't know, Danielle, if you have any insight on that as far as staff time goes to provide, like writing information, doing reports for the group. I think we have a wealth of information that we can provide and data for the group, but I'm not sure how we can commit, how much we can or cannot commit to have staff time dedicated on a regular basis to be producing all these reports for the committee.
But, and perhaps that's something where COBRO members could take the lead. For example, I think we probably have people in the room who understand the structure of chambers of commerce and private sector and other groups concerned with economic development trade in San Diego. And people such as Mario understand how the structure functions in Tijuana. So perhaps they could get together and draft just a short document, a short description that could then be refined. So if COBRO members are willing to invest a little time and also use their connections and perhaps staff members, that's a possibility as well. And that's something I think would be very useful, not only within SANDAG, but more broadly in San Diego and in Tijuana. Sort of the difference in structure and function of public agencies across the border. Because collectively, that's what governance comes from and management. But I think so anyway, why don't you think about that? And that might be a way to proceed. Hector?
Perhaps I have a little bit of history of COBRO since I was a founding member when I was the alternate for Consul Luis Herrera Lasso. COBRO has 28 years of experience working. So many of the topics that are you raising have been at some point dealt within the discussions of COBRO. The problem I think we are identifying is when COBRO lost its space in the website because that story disappeared. We used to have the annual conferences, then became the joint meetings with Mexico every year. So what happened is that we produced some papers based on the studies that we were developing. All of those were vetted in COBRO. That's when COBRO provided input to the studies. And, remember the border wait times impact that we had. It was vetted here. The border master plan has been also part of so that's the list that you have over there. But when SANDAG decided that the task force were not going to have a space in our website, that's when all that history disappeared. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So the story is there, but I'm very happy to hear that after 4 years, Mariela got the support to restore that in our website. So that is great. Once it is restored, I don't think there is a need to reinvent. Like for example, once we presented a report that paired the administrations, what exists at a municipal level on both sides, what exists at a state level on both sides, what exists at a regional level, and then federal level. So eventually, when all those are reestablished, I think you will have a lot of material to maybe update. And as of Mariela, I feel the pain of Mariela, hard to commit staff hours because we have a lot of other tasks doing. So, but you will get a lot of history.
Good point, Hector. Perhaps we don't need everything that previously was online, but selective items, I think, would be very helpful. So that's something that perhaps we can figure out where it resides. And then, I'd be glad to work with you and identify documents that I think are useful, and then we could sort of run them by the full committee and see what they think is appropriate. So I think that's a way to reinforce the content about the cross-border realities on the COBRO website. Okay, good.
Dr. Ganster?
Yes.
Yes, hi, it's Mario. I have a recommendation. Maybe in the list that you have on screen is a list of specific projects, which I think all of them are very important, both for the region and for SANDAG and for the COBRA to give input. But a suggestion that I might say, if I might say, might be instead of doing specific projects for 2025, maybe we should focus on areas of cross-border main themes or areas such as, infrastructure planning would be an area, and then we can figure out which projects are under that sort of, theme. Other ones could be like sustainability, could be economic development, could be workforce or education. If we define the work that we do and the topics for 2025 based on these sort of broader areas, then we can figure out and prioritize. So for each one of these, what are the most relevant where SANDAG has a role, right? Where SANDAG has some sort of decision and or say by which that would entail that COBRA, it makes sense for COBRA to, sort of invite the speakers and they come and present and we can give recommendations back. So just an idea about how to move for 2025 based on this list.
Mario, thank you for your comment. If I may respond very quickly. So at the last meeting, when we had the discussion of the different topics that were priorities for the membership, we had a lengthy conversation about those topics that were of interest. And these particular projects that we are presenting here are tapping into those themes that were brought up by the membership. So they reflect the topics that are also part of the summary that I sent ahead of time from the last meeting.
Thank you for that comment.
I'm also just curious, Mario, what you see as the benefit of having the categories instead of the specific projects?
The categories give an opportunity for other stakeholders to suggest issues and other projects or items that we might not have in our radar. I mean, I think one of the strengths of making sure that other, stakeholders participate on both sides is that we make sure that, things that are important for both sides there's a way to give them input. And again, there needs to be a certain type of criteria by which we actually invite those issues because they have to be somewhat relevant to the responsibilities and capacities of the agency, right?
Thank you.
Other comments?
Yes, Chair, I have a comment.
Yes.
This is Claudia from Tijuana Innovadora. I just want to add that we talk about sharing the information in our web page and social media about all the work that we're doing here. Mariela, for example, Mariela sent us some information that it's important to share so people can respond the survey that you guys are doing. So maybe we should write down in our COBRA work plan for 2025 that we as members would like to share all the information so they can participate and so the people can participate on all the tasks that we are doing.
Other comments?
I have a suggestion. Is this intended to be a comprehensive list? Okay.
No, this is a representative list of some of the topics that, or the projects that we will bring to the committee as part of the themes that were discussed.
Okay. I would suggest maybe adding the US-Mexico border transit connection as well.
I think since SANDAG has so many active projects, that list is necessary because that's something that COBRO can really contribute by reviewing and commenting on those projects. And that's been a part of the way we've operated in the past. For example, I remember a number of sessions and discussions about the whole issue of movement of people through San Isidro and the redesign and concerns about accessibility that committee members expressed. So, you know, that's certainly something that the COBRO members can provide input that is helpful to SANDAG as it moves forward with a number of projects. Now, I'm not quite sure what to say about Mario's proposition that we sort of restructure the work plan to include some general areas. It would have been helpful to have had that input a bit sooner. Yes, Nathan?
So I think Mario's brought up a good point. Given that we did discuss last time, it would be helpful to discuss specific projects and provide input on that. If we could clarify a process by which members could suggest new projects be brought up. Again, to Mario's point, there may not be something that is on our radar, but perhaps should be. But with the criterion that it does relate to SANDAG's broader mission and is relevant to the committee. So if there is a little bit more clarity around how members could propose additional projects to review or provide comment on, I think that would help cover some of the stuff that Mario is raising.
I would propose that we have a standing agenda item at the end of each meeting where we include just a slide with our kind of topic areas and give an opportunity. That way it doesn't necessarily need to be amended into the work plan, but we create the structure to do it.
Well, look, what I suggest is that we, again, put off adopting the work plan until next meeting. And we'll send out a note requesting specific written input by a certain date so that we can incorporate that into a new draft that we will consider at next meeting, and that's it. So that we're, does that make sense to everyone?
It makes sense to me, and I'm totally for that. I just want to add that I had several members that emailed me back a couple of weeks ago when I sent the first, sent the summary and the work plan. So if you guys have any comments, I'm more than happy to incorporate those, and we can continue. We can present the new draft at the next meeting.
Well, I realize it's frustrating, but I thank you for your willingness to bear a series of changes. But I think it's all part of a good process to discuss where we want to go and what we want in the work plan. Pretty quick, we're going to need to get onto our presentation, but I wanted to address the whole idea of part of COBRO's charge is to develop ideas and proposals and note critical issues and bring these to the attention of SANDAG. I think we're well positioned to do that because most of the people in the room and online deal with the border every day, professionally, personally, and have insights about what important issues are. But the point is, how do we take that more broadly to SANDAG? Well, one good possibility, I think, is that COBRO simply create a series of short reports identifying issues, providing some basic information, and then that can be incorporated as a report to the Borders Committee. And this, I think, will serve a couple of purposes. One, to perhaps energize the Borders Committee to think more about the southern border and the importance of the southern border to all of San Diego County. And I think hopefully it will increase within SANDAG attention to the southern border, which I think in past years has tended to recede a bit. And it is easy to forget about. We all still work on kind of a white map syndrome where we think nothing south of the international border is real, or the converse is true as well. So I think by either the chair or staff making periodic, regular, short reports to borders is a way to help get our message out about what we think critical issues are relating to the border. And Marty, I don't know if you have a comment on that approach or not. Okay.
No. I think it's very well put the way you mentioned it. Something that's not on here and that I would suggest that we have we think about, it doesn't have to be something we decide today, is that I know that, everything related to work of either the COBRA or whatever, any other committee at the agency has to do with staff time, right? And staff time is directly attached to the overall annual work program. I don't know up until what, capacity we have as board members and you as chair, Dr. Ganster, to have a conversation with the agency's leadership on how to make sure that we have the right budget supporting the binational work of the agency, given that, the role and responsibilities of SANDAG when it comes to border-related issues, in my personal view, has grown over the years as there's more and more attention of the importance of, cross-border planning and issues. That being said, over the course of the last few years, the overall work program and the annual budget dedicated to binational work has been reducing versus growing. And I'm not aware of how that internal decision-making and negotiations and, the fiscal, issues or behind those decisions from the agency, but that could be something, at least as a committee members, that we could recommend to the, whoever needs to the board or whoever makes the decisions. But I think this is something of importance that the committee members we need to discuss and be aware of, because again, we should not be, demanding more work or to do more stuff if we don't have the budget assigned for that, right? Gracias.
Okay, this is the Mario that the question was directed to. This is.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I
So,
didn't know you were there,
and first
Mario.
of all,
I apologize.
I want to answer the statements that were made. First of all, I would love to see some numerical data to see if the agency has reduced its border interaction budget. I think actually has increased, and you could see by the number of staff, by us creating the new director for border projects to implement goods movement in border projects. We have added staff to support COBRO. We are going to be focusing eventually also on the Borders Committee and beefing that up. So I would love to see the data. We have partnered with Caltrans on updating the border master plan, that it's in process. We have just secured $5 million for a a quality of life initiative for the border, looking into environmental impacts. We have our innovative finance team also getting involved with the border. So I would really like to eventually get some information to see how we're watering down our commitments to the border. Having said that, I think this is a golden opportunity for COBRO to come up with being the motor that drives those conversations and initiates the conversations on border issues. The experts in the southern border for our region are here in this table, in this group. And I don't think we should just be focused on project names. We should be focused on concepts. We should be focused on the environment, the mobility, the goods movement, the innovation, the economy, equity. We should really figure out how we're going to connect all those items and bundle it into a vision or several visions, right? And this committee has the power because there's a lot of people, very influential people in this committee, but also the power to float those policy issues. Don't get hung up on just sometimes just a project. Let's think about the broader policy issues that we can discuss, and then we land them in solutions that could be projects itself. So that's where I would like to see COBRO going, right? In having those broader conversations of how we're going to improve the quality of our border region in all the different points that I brought up. And yes, we'll have to dive in eventually into specifics, right? Because we need to really have examples of success, right? Alejandra has been asking me to move forward with the appointment system pilot for goods movement. We've been talking about other mobility options, the electrification, the needs on electrification and clean energy on both sides of the border, and also how that aligns with the requirements from CARB. So the opportunities are endless. I think we're going into a new era of even broader demand within our border region, both housing also issues. So really, I really applaud Dr. Ganster for asking to reconsider, send some written comments, and then let's put everything in the blender and see what we come out with. But we do need to come out with factual information, factual statements, things that hold water, not just passionate things, right? We're all very passionate about the border, but the rubber meets the road here. We need to really bring it home. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mario. So I think we need to continue this discussion at our next meeting. And now I think we need to move to our special presentation today on the World Design Capital, San Diego, Tijuana, 2024, a temporary paradise planning and placemaking, with my colleague Bruce Appleyard from SDSU and Eudora Gonzalez, who's a postdoctoral fellow at COLEF and working with another number of projects in the region. So welcome, and please take it away.
Thank you very much for having me. Can everyone hear me and see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. So I'm Bruce Appleyard. I'm a professor of city planning and urban design at San Diego State University, and I'm going to talk about the 50th anniversary of the vision plan my father and Kevin Lynch created for our region, focusing specifically on the on binational planning. So just a quick story about me and my father. When I was 4 years old, I was hit and nearly killed by a car. My father then started his research that became Livable Streets, which was the seminal work on the effects of traffic on communities and children and families. I since sadly, a year after the book came out, when I was 17, he was killed by a speeding drunk driver, which was a tragic irony. And I've since updated the book, taking it from 300 to 600 pages, and now I've been working on the 50th anniversary of Temporary Paradise. So effectively, 2 weeks, 50 years ago, it was September 15th, 1974, on a backdrop of out-of-control growth, rampant environmental destruction, and depressing urban decay. My father, Donald Appleyard, and his mentor, Kevin Lynch, presented Temporary Paradise to the city of San Diego, warning that unless leaders took steps to guide growth and conserve resources, its status as a paradise would be temporary. For 50 years, it has served as a timeless, transcendent, and transformative vision for our transnational region. The title was posed as a question, basically recognizing our potential as a paradise, but also questioning its sustainability. I've also often asked, why did Temporary Paradise resonate so strongly with people when it was first published? Why has it endured, and why is it still needed? Basically, as a unique regional urban design plan, it simultaneously acted as a roadmap for, one, conveying our region's most innovative ideas, two, through its poetic, passionate voice, and three, through its captivating imagery. As was created outside of silos, it uniquely shows us how everything is connected. Here's an example of the powerful voice and vision. This bold site, its openness, its sun and mild climate, the sea, the landscape contrasting with the brief space, are along with its people, the wealth of San Diego, Tijuana, and they must not be destroyed. A hopeful message, but also a warning. And we also need to recognize that it was not your usual dry, inhuman, technical public agency document. It had a poetic voice of passion and purpose. And just this way they talk about the climate. At the shore, the climate is mild and extremely stable. There is a steady breeze from the sea. Mornings are often cloudy and the afternoons bright. Not far inland, the sea breeze dies away. The even climate becomes progressively more extreme as one goes inland, hotter in the summer and colder in the winter. There's a little more rain, but still the air and land are dry and the sun shines almost without ceasing. What they did was they did a reconnaissance. They took about 10 helicopter trips, and they also listened. It was a listening tour. And this is a picture my father took that I found in my father's slide archives of Kevin Lynch walking to the helicopter, where they looked at rampant growth and also development up the canyons. Some more pictures of the helicopter trips that I found from my father's archives. They also used really unique perspectives in their illustrations, taking advantage of aerial photography and satellite imagery. These are some of the examples of how they drew the San Diego, Tijuana region. They looked at things also like moving the airport and also Coronado Naval Air Station for housing, which is something we can think about. They also looked at connecting the Mission Bay with San Diego Bay. So some innovative, progressive thinking about things. They also recognized things like how Point Loma could be a symbol for San Diego, Tijuana. And most importantly, they also recognize the importance of the canyons. This is a picture I took the other day. It shows this sort of tendril-like oases that canyons provide in our communities, while they also provide the places where we often put our roads. And they were very adamant about making sure we preserve our canyons. They showed us what was special in our regions. And I say that what makes us different than Los Angeles is our mesas, our canyons, and our coastal plains. We also have since created a book, a commemorative edition. We also created a scholarship fund for students at San Diego State University. And one of the things about the book is it's both English and Spanish. And I think if you'd like to get a copy, just please email me. Some of their big areas of interest were the valleys and the canyons, the seacoast, getting about, growth, existing communities, major centers, the Mexican connection, and the environment. And again, their captivating imagery about that really makes the work special. They talked about traveling light and mapped out the light rail line before it was even built, but at the time being considered. And they also talked about transit-oriented development about 20 years before the concept was adopted and presented by Peter Calthorpe, who actually used Temporary Paradise in some of his early work that probably helped him come up with the idea of transit-oriented development. And they talk about high clusters at prominent natural sites, high clusters around transit stations. They talked about things, they drew images of people walking, bicycling across the Coronado Bridge. And this is really important to SANDAG and COBRO. In the last section, called an environmental planning process for San Diego, Temporary Paradise details specific actions, studies, and processes the region's community service organization, the precursor to SANDAG, should undertake to realize the report's recommendations. It provided an important link between environmental planning and urban design. Again, thinking outside of silos, it showed how everything was connected. It also showed the brilliance of an unofficial official document that was untempered by political forces and whims. And I think in sitting in this meeting today, I'm recognizing that COBRO is a legacy of the thinking that my father and Kevin Lynch took about binational planning. In March, we had a great panel discussion about watershed and coastal resiliency, building housing in existing powerful communities, and a discussion about binational planning with Hector Venegas, Daniel Rivera, and Denora Gonzalez and Larry Herzog. It was a great discussion. We recently had another similar workshop in the middle of Balboa Park. And I'm now going to turn towards what they called the connection with Mexico. And these are pictures my father took on their trips down to San Diego, down to Tijuana. Other pictures of the conditions, erosion control that we still see today. And they basically sowed the seeds for a declaration of interdependence for San Diego Tijuana that I wrote in response to the anti-immigrant border wall building rhetoric of the 2016 campaign, which still seems to be useful today. They asked, dreams have some use. They give us hope, but they also move us to act. Can one dream about a region as large as San Diego Tijuana? We think so. And they said that the border should be converted to a zone of confluence as the metropolis shares its people, its economies, and its environment. And it's a vital meeting point of two living cultures. And here you see the maps that usually go blank on the respective sides of the border for San Diego and then Tijuana. And what they did was they did a wonderful illustration looking up the Tijuana River, showing how it transects and transcends our border. And here are some images of the wonderful hand-drawing illustrations they've done. They talked about joint cultural institutions at the border, cycling, walking, horse trails, sewage treatment plants, and so forth. But again, looking across the border, up the river, as if the border itself doesn't really exist. So this is really what they were going for. They talked about flows, environmental flows of water, smog, energy across the border. They talked about the San Diego-Tijuana River connection, the warning that the San Diego River should not be cement lined while the Tijuana River has been. And in a great charrette that Denora spearheaded, some of the students came up with the idea of putting parks above that cap the Tijuana River so they can actually survive the floods, but provide important open space. These are the ideas that we're looking at for Temporary Paradise Reimagined that Denora and I are working on. They looked at the San Diego, Tijuana, mostly Cali, Baja region, going all the way into not just ending in Mexicali, but also going into Arizona. And then just wrapping up on October 24th last year, 2023, we signed a Declaration of Interdependence for San Diego Tijuana. So maybe we can call October 24th San Diego Tijuana Interdependence Day. And here are some of the important parts of the Declaration of Interdependence that I wrote, inspired by my father. Cross-cultural exchanges have been happening for generations and even millennia across the San Diego Tijuana region. Our diversity and actually our differences are what make us special as a region. And we are important to each other because of this. With over 100,000 individual crossings a day, we need to recognize how our diversity, differences, and the wealth of opportunities and possibilities that exist on both sides of the border literally move our people to overcome its force as a barrier. And finally, the promise of our San Diego Tijuana confluence should not be overshadowed by fear-mongering from faraway voices. And that amid this divisive rhetoric from afar, we recognize that inclusive, respectful discourses arc towards the truth, allowing facts and knowledge to guide our policy decisions forward. So it's really important for us to have respectful, inclusive discourses so we make good policy decisions. The Tijuana River does not divide us like the Rio Grande, but it transects and transcends our border, uniting us, urging us to work together. And our transnational cross-cultural collaborations open our hearts and minds to the possibilities for all. In short, we do not need better walls, but more inviting bridges and welcome mats. So in closing, I just want to say, and together we ask, do dreams have use? Can one dream of a united San Diego Tijuana? Let's firmly say yes. The time has come for us to build on this hope, to move to act and to act now. And I close by always saying, Viva San Diego, Tijuana. So thank you all very much. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Comments and questions? Well, I'll start off with one, Bruce, Paul Ganster. The Temporary Paradise was presented as a report to the city of San Diego and its planning department in, 1974? And I think the city council accepted the report, and I think there were directions to the planning department to figure out how to put into action some of the recommendations. But I kind of lost track of it there. And it's pretty clear if you look at San Diego, Tijuana today, a lot of the recommendations, the wonderful recommendations and vision of Temporary Paradise were ignored. And I suppose my question is why, and what specific factors might you identify as barriers to adopting plans and policies and projects that make a lot of sense in terms of quality of life of the region and its inhabitants?
Thank you, Paul. I think that's really important. It was never really actually official. It was supported by the city, and Pete Wilson actually had the director, Max Schmidt at the time, assign Mike Stepner, who was a longtime city official who actually kept Temporary Paradise alive, and it showed up in different documents like the progress report and growth management guide. But it was never actually officially adopted by the city in total. So little pieces here and there. What's interesting about it was that when my father and Kevin Lynch wrote it, they said, these are our ideas. While I recognize also that they basically did a really great job of listening to people about what needs to happen, and then came up with their ideas. And they were able to stand by these fairly progressive ideas about moving the airport, connecting Mission Bay with the San Diego River, and also talking more broadly about our binational planning. And so they weren't tempered by political whims and forces or other interests, which I think makes the document really powerful. And so in that way, the document stands alone with this very forward progressive thinking and language that has always resurfaced as a guide of basically people basically ask, why haven't we done things in Temporary Paradise? It's been part of its endurance, and I think it's part of its magic that it wasn't really tempered by political forces and watered down in any way. So I think when Denor and I are thinking about doing a new piece on Temporary Paradise Reimagined, we're thinking about things along the same lines. And the new innovative thinking we have with our planning and placemaking group, and the things we've heard about in the past year with the WDC, I think there's a chance for us to have a Temporary Paradise Reimagined, because many of the things are actually as good as they were first written back 50 years ago, and that we would just add to it, inspired by the same idea of the best ideas through poetic voice and passionate and engaging imagery. So those are my reflections on that. I hope that answers the question.
Denora, do you have some thoughts on that?
Well, in this revision that we're doing about Temporary Paradise, and also in the experience we've been having within the Planning and Placemaking Design to Action Network, is that the vision, we should include other visions in Temporary Paradise. For one, the Mexican vision from the Mexican stakeholders to see what are the needs and wants for the region, and also to develop an idea and more conciliated approach to planning. And also other actors like maybe the Native nations, and to see how resources are maybe managed through these traditional forms of using land. So these are just some ideas that we've been capturing and that we will be presenting in our legacy report when we end this year through all our experiences throughout 2024. And well, as for the barriers that an initiative like Temporary Paradise might have, well, I think all of you are better equipped to answer these questions because you have so much accumulated knowledge about binational planning. And so maybe this is the discussion that we should have. It's more like building upon what kind of barriers might initiatives like in Temporary Paradise or other binational initiatives face in terms of these changing landscapes throughout the years.
Thanks, Denora. I'd also add that the last section on an environmental planning process for San Diego that they were suggesting that the precursor to SANDAG follow is worth looking at again. And I think we should all look at it again and think and see what are the things that SANDAG can do in line with what they were talking about with regards to environmental planning and regional urban design. So I would also offer that. And I'm happy to, I've got digital copies and things like that, so I'm happy to share with everybody.
Thank you. Another question, comment?
Thank you, Chair. This is Jacqueline Reynoso. I'm hoping maybe, Dinora, you could give us a little bit of a preview of what's planned. And I apologize if I'm confusing two Dans, but I know there's a November policy forum as part of World Design Capital. And I guess let me just go back a little bit. I want to thank Mario Orso for your comments on, really focusing on outcomes of the COBRO committee and institutionalizing maybe some of, these insights and recommendations from like a data coordination standpoint, a mobility planning standpoint, having a shared integrated governance structure that really can help, facilitate as a structure, right, some of these planning efforts in the border region. And as of late, I appreciated your comments as well at the South County Economic Development Council about integrating like the environmental component to the border master plan, which makes me think of the link that Bruce just mentioned between environmental planning and urban design. Anyhow, so given that really, looking at what could be as a binational region in state that lives beyond any of us that could really help facilitate this? And is that maybe what the focus of this policy forum as part of World Design Capital is striving to accomplish?
Maybe I can start with my presentation, and after which that could clear up many questions, and then we can focus on the policy conference, which will be the closing event of World Design Capital overall. It's one of the signature events that World Design Capital is working on. So if there's no more.
Yeah, I have a comment before you go, Dinora. I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. It was really great to see that summary and also have access to those unique photos. That's great. One recommendation I would say, and especially going towards the policy conference, is how do we make sure, because the document has been inspiring many people of us who've had opportunities to be in decision making, like when I was at the city doing binational affairs. This was the starting document for everything that we did as far as policy during the 2012-2013 mayorship under both Mayor Filner and then interim Mayor Todd Gloria. And I think sort of translating the spirit of the document and how the spirit and some of those elements, how do those actually can influence decision makers and policymakers? I think that's an opportunity, because I saw that, this Declaration of Interdependence was signed at the university, but I would have loved seeing the mayors there and then have that declaration or a policy version of that be adopted by the cities and the counties and the other entities that should be part of that. So that's something I'm, personally interested in helping in helping push forward as we move on with the policy agenda, policy conference for WDC, and also as part of a member of the COBRA. So just wanted to mention that. Gracias.
Thank you, Mario. I would really appreciate your help trying to get the political leaders to sign the Declaration of Interdependence as well. It's something I've asked us to consider for quite some time, and I presented the idea to Mayor Gloria, and he was very receptive. So if we can arrange something where we have a signing of this, I think it's an important document, and I'm happy to share it with you all as well.
Gracias.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll turn to Dinora Gonzalez, who has a presentation for us.
I'll try to be brief so we can continue the discussion. For us, this discussion is is the core of being here. So thank you, first of all, Mariela. Thank you, Paul, for having us, for hosting us. For us, the COBRO committee is a very important key element within our work because you work understanding issues related to the California and Baja California borders. These are both, this is a subject very near to what Bruce and I work on academically. And also is the space, it's the perfect space for our discussion for what we have been doing the past year in the planning and placemaking Design to Action Network. So without further delay, I would like to tell you that Bruce and I were contacted by midst of last year to lead the planning and placemaking Design to Action Network. This is a network of stakeholders and resources from both sides of the border, and our goal is to provide a platform that promotes and supports initiatives that have long-term impact within the San Diego-Tijuana region. This is one of 6 thematic networks that address areas of interest where design can be used as a tool for transformation. And these networks are a part of the legacy project of the World Design Capital, a project entitled with expanding the impact of the events and initiatives that World Design is hosting, but these initiatives would they have beyond 2024? So in this task, we are aided by junior designers, students from both sides of the border who are volunteering their time and energy to support the needs of these initiatives. And we also have a network of key stakeholders who not only bring their vast experience in various fields, including city planning, regional development, urban design, and other specialties, they also have proven to be valuable allies in advancing these initiatives in so many ways. So together, what we do, we leverage this collective experience to ensure that our projects not only address current, but also set the stage for long-term planning and long-term needs. So what are our impact projects? We have a roster of 15 initiatives right now. These 15 distinct planning and placemaking initiatives have the potential or were selected by the WDC because of their potential to create significant long-term impacts in our region. And they have been at the forefront of our transformative efforts throughout the year, working consistently to host events, to engage key stakeholders, and make meaningful progress on their objectives. Some of these projects are like Bay to Park Paseo, which is a tactical urbanism project, which consists of an activation of the pedestrian connection between the Bayfront and Balboa Park through art installations. Also, the historic restoration of parts of Agua Caliente Casino, a public space project that seeks to recuperate one of Tijuana's most emblematic historic sites. The binational, or others are binational education innovations, like the Transporter Association of Architecture Schools, where architecture schools from both sides of the border converse about the future of this discipline in this binational region. And you already heard of the celebrations of temporary paradise at 50 and the reflections that are leading us to discuss and maybe reimagine temporary paradise for the next 50 years. And also, we have mobility initiatives, and some of you're already familiar with, like the San Isidro Transit Center and the Binational Bikeway, which also was presented here at SANDAG, and the Binational Transit Initiative, which are part of our roster. Imagine if these could be planned integrally, they could surely have a greater potential impact on how we move from one city to another. So we are proud of the strides we've made so far, and we are committed to ensuring that these initiatives continue to develop and produce tangible results for the future. What we have done within the network is, or what we do, we try to get the meetings with key stakeholders to move forwards, to move these initiatives forwards. We help them with their event organization, setting up venues for meetings and events. Also, the WDC supports the marketing for these events. And we work with community socialization and engagement for these initiatives. And all throughout, we try to expand their networks. So these could be advancing. And last, these are some pictures of the events we've had and or the events that these initiatives have also had throughout the year. And this is what I was talking about, that what we have learned throughout 2023 and 2024, we are developing our legacy report. And here we will not only capture the progress and impact of these initiatives, but we also want to say what we learned about this effort in binational community organization. So by the end, we have set up, by the end of this presentation, we have set up a couple of questions, and maybe we can further the discussion that we were having right now after temporary paradise. And because of this discussion, we would like it to be part of the report. Okay, and lastly, we want to extend a warm invitation for you to join us at our upcoming events. Today we are here at Cobro, but we also have a Pachacucha night, October 11th. And Bruce and I will be at the Reborder Conference at SDSU, talking about the next 50 years of temporary paradise. And there are several other events that we invite you to be part of. So in conclusion, we are working hard to foster all of these initiatives and drive meaningful change. And also, I think that Cobro and what we are doing is very in sync. And maybe this collaboration could also help us think of what planning and placemaking could be after 2024, when the World Design Capital ends. So maybe our network can start engaging with Cobro if this is something that is possible. So thank you, and I think something that we would like to leave you with is a question. I know that something that we've been talking about, Bruce and I, is that the work we do is not, it's about harnessing the knowledge that our binational region has. So here at this table, all of you have an experience that is particular to this region. And that experience is what we would like to harness in our legacy report and to know what your experience has been. So we have developed a few questions. I don't know if they're after this presentation. Right. Okay. Well, we would just like to see if any one of you would like to share your experience and maybe have like this a big umbrella question. And how can we make binational planning work? Maybe this is a big question, but maybe the discussion we can have like 5 minutes to hear what your experience is.
Comments on that? Well, I'll just say when you look at successful binational planning in the European region, particularly on the external borders of the EU, it's occurred in a number of places and been fairly successful. Sweden and Finland, for example, there's one area where they combined the planning departments, so it really is binational. But those successful efforts were heavily subsidized with external funds. And I don't know of any cases in the European region where you have significant combination of planning without subsidies, because ultimately, I think planning involves land use planning, which involves property values. And that certainly is a problem when thinking across the border. So, I don't mean to be so negative, but perhaps you can figure out ways to better plan across the border. Yes.
Quick comment on that, and thank you for bringing this up. This is something that we in the mayor's office think about a lot, right? Cross collaboration and just the difficulty of it because of the different resources, the different governments, and the bureaucracy that comes with all of that. But there was a really good group, UN Habitat, that came to the region. We met at, I believe it was Golef, about 2 years ago, and they brought together regional stakeholders and we talked about the shared problems within the region. And I believe there was outcomes that came from that. It was like a 2-day workshop that we had. So that might be interesting. It was an interesting model. I know they've done it in other big metropolitan regions and it has been successful, and they've been able to figure out how to kind of govern the huge metropolitan regions. So that might be worth following up with or worth looking into.
I think
Mario
that,
had his hand up first. Go ahead.
oh, no, you were going? All right.
But go ahead, I'll go after you.
I think that, you're not going to get broad, huge planning overall, right? But I think we have some, let's call it best practices or successes that we have achieved. Jose, with the border master plan, has been a place where how many 42 agencies, Jose? You got together
almost 40
yeah,
agencies.
to dialogue about envisioning border infrastructure. Then you start taking it to a more granular way, and like the Otay Mesa East project has been quite challenging, but has been a very rewarding experience where we have worked hand in hand with SICT as well as the state government, Baja, on planning that border crossing. And it started since probably the early 2000s on determining the location and then the size and then the footprint, and then just the roadways. But it's gone to such granular point now that Maria's designing together with Mexico a points of return, making it trying, and we're not there, of making it a seamless process, right? Yes, there is a checkpoint, but trying to make a seamless experience of connecting. And like that, there are other examples that I haven't worked on them, but I can imagine, the connection of our sewer systems, success, delay, whatever the sewer system treatment plants, strategies. So there are some best practices. How to integrate all that. That is the $64,000 question. But I think one of the challenges that we have sometimes is the movement. We as institutions on this side of the border, regardless of the leadership, the staff still there and continues to work. Versus sometimes with the Mexican government, we have a lot of turnover or broader turnover, and the learning curve, the vision doesn't change, but the learning curve kind of impacts. So when you have a 3-year term municipality, where we're going to spend probably first year or year and a half getting acquainted and talking about the plans, and then trying to get it implemented in the other year and a half, it's hard, right? Otay Mesa East has been one of those projects that has been able to transcend administrations, and SICT has done a great job on that. And probably the reason behind it is because the staff from SICT has been the same in the last 20 years. Working on this project, or 15 years. So anyway, those are just some of practices, best practices, big picture, but also granular. The sky's the limit. I think one different buckets that we can be talking about: the mobility, the land use, the connectivity, the active transportation features, and the transit features. And also some environmental discussions, right? And you had some there, right, in your points. But that's my thought. If you want to dime for.
Thank you. Thanks very much. That was perfect. We have time for one final, short, concise comment.
Just to add to what Mario just shared, I think, from our experience, something as simple and important as data sharing, I think that's still a big vacuum in terms of, being able to coordinate data sets on both sides, models that actually go beyond the border. So looking at, a binational model program. And then almost like a playbook, right? So what are the lessons learned from Otay Mesa East, even looking at the privately developed CBX, and a playbook that anybody who's working on binational projects can go to and be able to navigate: where do I mine the data? Who are the coordinating agencies on the permitting side? And having direct contacts.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to our presenters. And we're out of time, so we need to end the meeting. Very productive discussion, and I appreciate everyone's input. We will reconvene on November 6th at 10:30 a.m. in this room and online. So thank you very much.
I have a very quick comment. The meeting in December is gonna need to be virtual. We're moving buildings, as you all know, or maybe not, but we're moving buildings. So we're gonna be taking all the equipment from this boardroom to the new building. And so we're gonna need to have the virtual meeting in December for that reason. We're not gonna have equipment to have it here. So. But in February, we'll be back online in person. So thank you very much.